Hi, it's Amanda, and this conversation is for you if you're going through a big change right now, or if you're considering a big change. So, for so many people out there, these past few years have been a time of great grief, a time of loss, and a time of old chapters, former relationships, either changing in that the dynamics within those relationships are beginning to break down so that something new can be birthed, or the relationship itself is sort of needing to fall to the wayside in order for some form of growth, healing, or evolution to take place. On the other hand, we have a lot of people out there who have suffered from some form of loss. And that could be the relationship ending. It may also be a loved one passing on. And for others, they have been diagnosed with a serious illness and are trying to find ways to heal. So in all of these scenarios, what it is on an energetic, psychological, physical, and even spiritual level is the death of an identity. So as humans, we go through numerous identity deaths and personal rebirths throughout our lives. If we are real people who are really focused on self-reflection and holding ourselves accountable for our behavior and growing into wiser versions of ourselves, then we probably go through more of these identity deaths and personal rebirths than a lot of people. So that can sometimes mean that life feels perpetually tumultuous. We may feel like we're constantly navigating some pretty chaotic waters, and maybe the wave breaks for a while and we're feeling balanced and we're feeling at ease. And then lo and behold, something new presents itself for us to look at, to grow through or heal. So I know that journey quite well. It seems never ending. And I'm sharing this video with you today to hopefully provide a lot of support and ease and clarity for anyone out there who is going through a big change right now. A lot of people are in this in-between state. So when we go through a loss, whether it is a relationship ending or losing a person, we are essentially going through an identity death, right? So the person that we were in that relationship is transforming, meaning that it's ceasing to exist. The thought patterns and the behavioral habits that got us into those relationships in the first place, or that kept us in those relationships, are changing. So that part of your identity is shifting. Same thing with sickness. The habits or patterns in our lives that are not supporting optimal health have to die in order for us to bounce back from that sickness. So all of these habits and patterns are being pulled to the surface for us to look at and decide, do we still want to choose these old ways, or are we walking a new path? For many watching this right now, you've already made the decision to walk a new path, and you are finding yourself in this in-between state. So it's like the old life and all of your old behaviors and patterns are over here. Your new life is not, we haven't quite manifested that, or we don't know what's coming, or we haven't stepped into it. Perhaps it's experiencing ourselves healthier than ever before on the other side of sickness, or perhaps it's experiencing ourselves with more personal sense of value, being more aligned with our hopes and dreams and what brings us joy than ever before. Perhaps that's what's waiting for us. Or perhaps it's an entirely new experience or an entirely new relationship. But when we go through an identity death, there's always this in-between state before the new life or the new self emerges. And I love to refer to this as the gap between. And I love this gap between. It used to be the most challenging place for me to be because I was so anxious to welcome in the new, or so anxious to sort of claim my new place in the world, or my new place or power within myself. But that anticipation and that anxiety would sometimes make this a very uncomfortable place to be, right? Where I would experience a lot of impatience in that place. And if I would get too impatient, then I would rush things. I would start rushing into new, work agreements or new relationships or various types of commitments before I was really ready. And when I rushed the gap between, what would happen is that I would always end up manifesting or recreating more of the same old energy. And that's because it's in this space between that we begin to reorganize ourselves. We're changing our vibration. We are shifting our perceptions. We are allowing ourselves to recognize the decisions we were making before that prevented us from feeling nourished, or that depleted our energy, or that stole our inner light. And I really want to talk a lot about the inner light today, because it's way more than just a concept, and I'm going to bring it down to earth for you. But let's just use an analogy here. Okay. So we have identity death and personal rebirth. Let's think about the birthing process, or let's think about just being in the womb. All right. So when we originate as a little light being that comes from this ethereal source, you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it an ethereal source of creation. And we come from this place as this beam of consciousness. And we leave this place and we start as a seed in this third dimensional reality within a physical body. And in utero, we are essentially alone. We're a seed within a body, within a world, but we're alone in the womb, right? We have in that place, it is a world of only feeling and sensing. All feeling and sensing. We don't have thought processes from super developed neocortex. We don't have conditioning from the world yet. And we've come from this other place, right? So it's sort of leaving goodbye wherever we came from and beginning to have a new experience. We're rebirthing into a brand new world, but we're all alone in the womb. And because we are alone, our sensory system is pretty much all we have. It's our only way of connecting with ourselves and the world, all through feeling and sensing. And in this place, our main job here is to receive nourishment, right? We're in utero, feeling, sensing, and receiving nourishment. And that's it. And that is a must so that we can healthfully be birthed into this new world, right? So it's very much the same for us. If you have just experienced the loss of a relationship, if you have just been diagnosed with an illness, if you're coming out of a situation where you see that there was abuse and manipulation happening here and you're no longer putting up with that, so you're choosing to show up differently in the world, you are also in this gap between life old and life new. Essentially, you're in utero. You're in this womb of creation. And so your work right now is to feel and sense the energy of the old world. So you know 100% what you're leaving behind. Can you feel and sense that that was not healthy for you? Can you feel and sense what perhaps manipulation feels like, or control or abuse? Can you feel and sense what it felt like to harm your body or to not make time for your body? Can you feel and sense what that was like? Maybe it was just overworking all the time and not getting proper nutrients or proper rest and relaxation. Or maybe it was surrounding yourself with people who were not necessarily nourishing for you. Maybe they kept you company, but they weren't necessarily nourishing to your spirit. So you can feel and sense what is there in the old life, what is leaving. It's very important when you are in this gap between to spend the time alone to really feel and sense deeply what you're letting go of. Because if we get too impatient here and we hurry along and try to create something new, but we haven't spent the time to truly feel and sense at the level of our psyche, body, and soul, what we're letting go of. If we don't take that time, we're going to go out and we're going to recreate the same things. The relationships are going to feel the same. Our bodies are going to feel the same. Our psyche will feel the same. It's inevitable. So that is one task when you're in this gap between. Okay. And it's simple because really all it requires is that you be alone and that you be present with yourself. The next aspect of this is that we are receiving nourishment, like a baby in the womb, receiving nourishment in this protective cocoon and receiving nourishment. So nourish yourself. This is time to look at the ways that you were not nourishing yourself before and to begin making those changes. Creating rhythm in your day so that you're not overworking for 8 to 10 to who knows 16 hours a day. Creating that rhythm where your days have a rise and fall. Most illness originates from a lack of rhythm within our lives. And we have a lack of rhythm in our lives. We have a lack of rhythm within our nervous system and within all of our physiological and biological functions. So nourishment. It can happen through in so many ways. It's not just about food and rest and relaxation, but it's also about nourishing yourself by building your shin back up. Now, your shin in Chinese medicine, your shin is the light of the soul, the fire of the soul. And when we go through grief, or we go through any form of abuse or manipulation, these things diminish our shin. It diminishes the light of the soul because we experience it. Let's take, for instance, if you were in a situation where you were overexerting yourself or allowing yourself to be manipulated by people around you. This type of dynamic can only happen if you are not valuing yourself enough, right? When we make everything else more important than ourselves and we don't connect with what nourishes us or what fills us up or brings us joy, then we are not connected to that soul fire where it's sort of this identity confusion where we believe that we're not worth the time and we start to lose our unique essence. The person I was working with today had been in an abusive relationship, and she is just an incredible being and an incredible artist. But there were so many things that were said to her throughout this relationship that caused her to doubt herself, to doubt her abilities as an artist, and to feel embarrassed or ashamed of the types of hobbies and interests that she had. And so she quit engaging in those hobbies and interests. And every time she would sit down to create a piece of art, she would have all of this person's criticism in her mind. And so these are the things, her hobbies, her interests, her art, those are the things that build her soul fire. But this relationship severed that from her. She quit connecting with that soul fire in order to fit into this relationship to meet someone else's expectations and demands. And so relationships like this diminish our shin. Also, when we experience grief or loss, there is a part of us that we're actually going through a death of ourselves as well. The part of us that existed in that relationship is no longer there. We no longer have that person to relate to. And so we can go through a lot of confusion. Mothers have this whenever, their children go away to school and they don't know, what do I do with myself? And we can see a diminishing of the shin energy, the soul fire, because they believe that their only purpose was to be a mom and a caregiver. And over the years, they quit connecting with what lights them up. And so they lose that soul fire. If we live in that state of diminished soul fire for too long, then our bodies begin to become sick as well. So just some things to consider as you're in this gap between life old and life new. What are you doing to rebuild your soul fire? What brings you into a state of wonder? What brings you into a state of timelessness? It's not all about just being happy or finding the things that make you happy or joyful. It's not always about that. In fact, I was just speaking with a client today about how every person has a unique energetic signature. And in herbalism, we look at this all the time. The energetic signature of a rose, for instance, resembles a female reproductive system. And the rose has an affinity, a medicinal affinity for the female reproductive system, offers us a lot of medicine. Trees have an energetic signature that kind of mimics the lungs. And of course, we know that we can't breathe and we can't have oxygen without our tree allies. So that's an energetic signature, meaning that this particular plant serves a specific role within the ecosystem. It has a specific function, a specific power, and a specific way that it nourishes the collective. It has a unique way of cooperating with the whole for the best for all. And we humans are no different. We also, you have a unique energetic signature. This is the essence that you are born with. And you know that you are aligned and embodying that signature when you are feeling yourself full of vitality or energy. And this doesn't always mean joy. I have a client who she has a disposition for melancholy. And I can relate to that as well. I can definitely be in those spaces a lot as well. But she has a disposition for melancholy. She loves reading sad poetry, and she, as an artist, when she channels that melancholy into her work, she creates pieces of art. She creates painting that, one, sell for a lot of money. And two, that the reason they sell for a lot of money is that when other people see this art that is basically sadness and melancholy splashed onto a canvas, when they see that, they feel their own melancholy and they know that they're not alone within their sadness. Because that piece of art shows them someone else understands. Someone else has also felt like this. And that art is healing. And the melancholy that the artist allows herself to feel is healing. And when she is putting that melancholy into the art, she feels fully alive and full of energy, totally in a timeless flow state. And so she was kind of having conflict about this of, am I supposed to be happy? Because that's what I'm told, society tells us this is good, this is bad. And we had this conversation about her unique energetic signature, and that perhaps part of her signature on the planet is to be an embodiment of melancholy and channel that energy into healing power. In this way, melancholy becomes comfort, becomes companionship for those who connect with her art. So your unique energetic signature is all your own. And it's not supposed to look or feel any particular way. Whatever it is, it serves a purpose and it will give you energy. You will feel full of life when you're really embodying that and emanating that. And it will serve the collective in ways that you may not even have planned, probably in ways that you would never have planned with your human mind. Because when we're embodying that signature, that is our soul essence flowing through and emanating into the world. It's not a thought process. It's not a business plan. Not to say that we can't put plans and intentions around it, but this is a different realm of experiencing ourselves, a different level of experiencing ourselves. So as you're in this gap between life old and life new, perhaps ask yourself, what is my energetic signature? What is my unique essence that's been with me forever? And how can I channel that in a way that brings me into timelessness, that energizes me, that whenever I'm in that state, there is no sense of self-doubt. It is all flow in your zone. We all have it. When humans often can get a little disillusioned by life experiences and question their self-worth because we live in this matrix world that tells us, you have to be this, this, or this, otherwise you're not fitting in and you're not measuring up. But all of that is fabricated. Nature doesn't have that. The bees don't question if they're going to go out and be a bee today, right? They feel and sense through their sensory neurons. They're literally feeling and sensing where to go in order to do their work of pollination. And the benefit from that is that we have sustenance, we have food on this planet. It has been said that bees provide 1/3 of the world's food supply. But the bees aren't buzzing around all self-important, like, I'm going to make the most food today, I'm going to feed the humans. It's probably not even a thought, right? They are connected with their energetic signature, fully embodying their essence, and through feeling and sensing, they fulfill their purpose, and that happens to serve the collective. That's just a bee. And I don't even want to say just a bee. I have so much reverence for the bees. But we humans are a part of nature. We are a part of nature, not separate. We have an energetic signature. And when we find that, our Shin, our soul light, will be replenished. And from that place, we can feel and sense how we wish to carry ourselves into our next chapter. We're not taking the old with us. We're embodying our true essence, carrying that signature forward so that we can create a chapter that is truly brand new, no longer repeating more of the old sickness, not repeating any more of the manipulation, any more of the overworking to the point of exhaustion, not, scheduling our days so that we don't even have time to take care of ourselves. We're not repeating that anymore. I'm not repeating that anymore. We would never behave in such a way if we're connected to our felt sense. Just like all of nature out there using their sensory neurons to feel and sense how much nutrients to take in, how much nutrients to share, when to rest, when to work. That is a felt sense. It is not a time management strategy. It is not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but through our felt sense, we have all the time management and energy management we could possibly need. It's not in someone's book, some author that's trying to help you be successful and get rich the quickest. That is not aligning you with your felt sense and your shin. That's just teaching you how to be a part of the world, right? So you can use these things as tools. You can use the books and all the self-help stuff as tools. But if you are living divorced from your felt sense, divorced from your energy signature, your soul light, your shin, then you will inevitably recreate the same types of loss, of grief, of heartache, of conflict, of trauma, of abuse, of emotional turmoil, of feeling not good enough, of feeling undervalued, of feeling unseen, of feeling like there's never enough time for you to take care of yourself. You'll recreate the same unless you use this gap between to feel and sense what you're letting go of, to rebuild your shin, your soul fire, by getting in touch with your unique essence and what gives you energy. What nourishes you? Can you plan your life and your days around what nourishes you? That's so basic, but we're not doing it. We're planning our lives around what we can give, how we can have an output that will be recognized. And that's fine. That's part of the human experience, the human condition. But if we are living in a way where it's all about how much energy we can get from the world to prove our worth, we are going to malnourish ourselves. Sickness will happen, heartache will happen. That's just inevitable. So to conclude, if you are finding yourself in this gap between life old and life new, remember, you are in utero. Your job here is to nourish yourself as much as possible, to get very clear about what you're letting go of, and to rediscover your soul fire. What lights you up? What brings you into a state of timelessness? What just might be your unique role in the ecosystem that will have a gigantic impact on the collective? May you use this gap between to connect with these things. And from that place of deep inner knowing, may you step forward into your next chapter. I am here with you in the journey, and I love you all so, so much. Thank you for being a part of mine. Mwah. With love from Guatemala.